The stars looked cold and distant through the observation window of New Hope Colony. Governor Linda Hayes stood with her hands pressed against the glass, watching the darkness beyond. She had lived on this world for 12 years, helping to build it from nothing into a home for 30,000 people. Now, everything she loved was in danger. Behind her, the colony council room buzzed with worried voices. Men and women who ran the farms, the water systems, the power plants, all gathered because of the message that came 2 hours ago. Linda turned away from the window and faced them. "They want us gone," she said quietly. "The Kethran Dominion claims this entire region belongs to them. They say we have 48 hours to evacuate or they will remove us by force." The room fell silent. Then everyone started talking at once. Angry voices mixed with frightened ones. Some demanded they fight back. Others asked how they could possibly leave their homes in just 2 days. Linda raised her hand for silence. "I've already sent a message to Earth. They know what's happening. But even at quantum speeds, help is 3 days away. We're on our own for now." High above the colony in the black space beyond the planet's atmosphere, more than 200 alien warships gathered. They formed a massive wall of metal and weapons, blocking out the stars. At the center of this fleet sat the command ship of Admiral Krathex, a vessel 3 times larger than any human station. Krathex was a Kethran, tall and covered in dark blue scales that gleamed under the ship's lights. His 4 eyes studied the tactical display showing the human colony below. To him, this was a simple matter. Humans were weak. They traded and talked but rarely fought. A show of force would make them run. "Status report," he commanded, his voice a deep rumble. His second officer, a younger Kethran named Vexal, checked his screens. "All ships in position, Admiral. The Siskrit have brought 40 vessels. The Vrex Hive Queen sent 35 of her bioships. The Taurian Collective added another 30. Combined with our fleet, we have 214 warships." Krathex clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "And the humans?" "Nothing, Admiral. Our scouts detected no military vessels in the system. The colony has basic defense satellites, but they pose no threat. We estimate they have perhaps 200 ground troops with light weapons." Another officer, this one from the insectoid Vrex species, chittered from her station. "Admiral Krathex, the Hive Queen wishes to know why we wait. The humans are defenseless. We should begin the assault now." Krathex waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Patience. We gave them an ultimatum. We are civilized beings, not pirates. When the time expires, if they have not left, then we act. Besides, I suspect they will surrender long before that. Humans always do." Around the command center, other officers nodded in agreement. The reputation of humanity in this part of space was well known. They were newcomers, barely a century into their space age. They built colonies and traded goods, but they avoided conflict whenever possible. Their ships were small and carried minimal weapons. Most species saw them as harmless. Far beyond the gathered fleet, at the very edge of the star system, something moved through the darkness. It had emerged from a jump point 3 hours earlier, a location so distant that no sensors detected its arrival. The vessel was angular and gray, about half the size of Krathex's command ship but built with strange proportions. Its hull bore the markings of Earth's deep space fleet and a name painted in white letters, USS Valiant. On the bridge of the Valiant, Commander Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair, watching the long-range scans of the alien fleet. He was a lean man in his early 40s with gray starting to show in his short dark hair. His uniform was neat but worn from years of service. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. 214 ships, said Lieutenant Sophie Grant from the communications station. She was younger than Morrison, with red hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she worked. "That's more than intelligence estimated." Morrison nodded slowly. "Classification?" The tactical officer, a stocky man named Carl Briggs, answered without looking up from his displays. "Mix of everything, Commander. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels. Standard configuration for this region. Energy weapons, plasma cannons, missile systems. Their shields use a rotating frequency pattern." "And they don't know we're here?" Morrison asked. "No, sir," Sophie confirmed. "Stealth systems are holding. We're too far out for their sensors, and our signature is masked. As far as they know, New Hope is alone." Morrison stood and walked to the main view screen. The alien fleet was just a cluster of dots at this distance, but the computer painted them in detail. So many ships, so much firepower pointed at innocent people who just wanted to live their lives. Commander, Sophie said carefully, we're one ship. Even with our advantages, the odds are not good. I know, Morrison replied. He thought about his orders from Earth Command. Hold position, observe. Only engage if absolutely necessary. The problem was, in 24 hours it would become absolutely necessary. Those colonists were human beings. They were his responsibility, whether anyone back home wanted to admit it or not. Sir, Carl spoke up, I've been running scenarios through the combat computer. If we hit them fast and hard, if we use everything we have, we might be able to create enough chaos to make them think twice. Morrison turned to look at his tactical officer. Might? Carl shrugged. It's better than nothing. These aliens, they've never fought humans before. Not really. They think they know what we can do, but they don't. We've got kinetic weapons that will go through their shields like paper. We've got speed they can't match. And we've got one thing they definitely don't have. What's that? Sophie asked. Carl smiled grimly. The element of surprise. Morrison returned to his chair and sat down. He looked at each member of his crew. 23 people on this ship. 23 against an armada. But those 23 were the best Earth had to offer. They trained for situations exactly like this, even if nobody ever expected it to actually happen. How long until the ultimatum expires? He asked. 23 hours and 16 minutes, Sophie answered. Morrison nodded. Then we wait. But get me everything you can on that fleet. I want to know their formations, their command structure, their weaknesses. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Yes, sir, came the chorus from his crew. Back on New Hope, Linda Hayes made her decision. She gathered the council and told them what they already knew in their hearts. They would not leave. This was their home. They built it with their own hands, and they would defend it with their last breath if necessary. The council voted unanimously. Every member knew what it meant. They might die. Their families might die. But running would mean abandoning everything humanity stood for. They sent their answer to the Kethran fleet. No. When Admiral Krathex received the message, he laughed. It was a harsh barking sound that made his officers flinch. Humans and their pride. They would learn. In less than a day, they would learn what happened when lesser species defied the Dominion. But in the cold darkness of space, the USS Valiant began to move closer. Its weapons powered up, its crew made ready, and Commander Jake Morrison prepared to teach the galaxy a different lesson entirely. 20 hours remained on the countdown. The alien fleet hung in space like a dark cloud, weapons charged and crews at battle stations. On the command ship, Admiral Krathex reviewed the final attack plans. Everything was ready. The humans would surrender or they would be destroyed. It was that simple. Then the sensors started screaming. Every console on the bridge lit up at once. Officers shouted over each other. Vexal, the second officer, tried to make sense of the chaos flooding his screens. Admiral, we have a contact, he said, his voice rising. Unknown vessel. It just appeared on our sensors. Krathex rose from his command throne. Location? Bearing 27 Mark V, distance 400,000 kilometers and closing, Vexal reported. It came from nowhere, Admiral. Our long-range sensors show nothing, but now it's right there. Stealth technology, Krathex muttered. Classification? The sensors officer, a nervous young Kethran, worked frantically at his station. Scanning now, Admiral. The hull composition is unknown. Energy signature does not match any known species. Wait, I'm getting markings. It's human. A ripple of laughter spread through the command center. Human? One human ship? This had to be a joke. Krathex felt his tension ease. Perhaps the humans had sent a courier to beg for more time. That made sense. Open a channel, he ordered. Before his communications officer could comply, the human ship broadcast on all frequencies. The voice that came through was calm, professional, and spoke in perfect galactic common. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Valiant. I'm addressing the Kethran fleet and its allied forces. You are in violation of the territorial sovereignty of New Hope Colony, a legally established human settlement. You have threatened civilian lives and demanded illegal evacuation. You will power down your weapons and withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning. Silence fell across the Kethran bridge. Then someone started laughing. Within seconds, the entire command crew joined in. Even Vexal allowed himself a smile. One ship threatening 214? The humans had gone insane. Krathex raised a hand for quiet. When his crew settled down, He activated the communication system himself. Commander Morrison, I am Admiral Krathex of the Kethrin Dominion. I believe you may not fully understand your situation. You are facing a fleet of over 200 warships. Your vessel is alone. I suggest you turn around and leave before you are destroyed for your impudence. On the bridge of the Valiant, Morrison listened to the Admiral's response. Sophie watched him carefully. The commander's expression never changed. He simply pressed the communication button again. Admiral Krathex, you have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal. If you do not comply, you will be considered hostile combatants and dealt with accordingly. I suggest you consult with your science officers about human weapons technology before you make your final decision. Morrison out, the transmission ended. Morrison turned to Carl at the tactical station. Status? All weapons systems online and ready, Commander. Railguns loaded and charged. Missile racks at full capacity. Point defense grid active. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Sophie checked her console. Sir, I'm monitoring their communications. They're laughing at us. Let them laugh, Morrison said quietly. Continue approach. Standard speed. I want them to see us coming. Back on the Kethrin command ship, Krathex ordered his science team to scan the human vessel more thoroughly. The laughter had faded, replaced by professional curiosity. What exactly was this ship? The chief science officer, an older Kethrin with gray scales, worked at his station for several minutes before looking up with a confused expression. Admiral, this is unusual. What is? Krathex asked impatiently. The vessel's weapon systems. They are not energy-based. I detect what appear to be magnetic acceleration tubes, similar to ancient projectile weapons but on a massive scale. There are also conventional explosive missiles, nothing exotic. The power plant is a fusion reactor. Very efficient but not remarkable. The hull appears to be standard military-grade composite materials with additional armor layering. Vexal snorted. Projectile weapons? The humans are using primitive kinetic systems? The science officer nodded slowly. It appears so. However, the magnetic signatures suggest these projectiles are accelerated to very high velocities. Still, against our energy shields, they should be ineffective. Krathex felt relieved. So that was it. The humans were bluffing with outdated technology. Their stealth systems were impressive, but their weapons were ancient. This changed nothing. The human vessel continues to approach, Admiral, the tactical officer reported. Current distance 300,000 kilometers. They are not powering weapons or raising shields. The Vrex officer chittered from her station. Admiral Krathex, the Hive Queen requests permission to destroy the human vessel. It insults us with its presence, Krathex considered. The humans had been warned. They refused to leave. Perhaps it was time to teach them a lesson. Not destroy them completely, just disable their ship and capture it. Earth would get a clear message about the cost of defiance. Negative, he said finally. I want that ship intact for study. Order heavy cruisers Talvor, Kexnil, and Dramoth to advance and disable the human vessel. Use ion cannons only. Do not destroy it. Vexal transmitted the orders. 3 massive warships, each one larger than the human vessel, broke formation and moved forward. Their weapons charged with blue light as they accelerated toward the Valiant. On the Valiant's bridge, alarms sounded. Carl looked up from his console. Commander, 3 heavy cruisers breaking formation. They're heading right for us. Weapons charging. Morrison watched the 3 ships grow larger on the view screen. He could see the plasma building in their cannons, see the shields shimmer around their hulls. They were beautiful in a way, these alien warships. Beautiful and deadly. Range? He asked calmly. 200,000 kilometers and closing fast, Carl replied. They'll be in firing range in 90 seconds. Sophie gripped her console. Commander, they're trying to disable us, not destroy us. They want to capture the Valiant. That's not going to happen, Morrison said. He leaned forward in his chair. Tactical, target the lead cruiser. 1 railgun round, center mass. On my mark. Carl's hands flew across his controls. Target locked. Firing solution calculated. Ready, sir? The 3 alien cruisers continued their approach, confident in their shields and armor. They had destroyed countless enemy vessels. 1 small human ship would be easy prey. Out of 50,000 kilometers, Carl counted down. 100,000, entering optimal range. Morrison took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would change everything. He thought about the colonists on New Hope, about the families sleeping in their homes, trusting that someone would protect them. He thought about Earth so far away, counting on him to make the right choice. "Fire," he said. The USS Valiant's main railgun fired. There was no dramatic light show, no energy beam, no explosion, just a solid tungsten rod, 3 meters long and 30 centimeters wide, accelerated to 3% of light speed by magnetic coils running the length of the ship. The projectile crossed 100,000 kilometers in less than a second. The lead Kethrin cruiser's shields were designed to disperse energy. They worked perfectly against lasers and plasma. But a solid object moving at that speed carried kinetic energy that no energy shield could stop. The shields might as well not have been there at all. The tungsten rod punched through the cruiser's shields, through its thick armor plating, through the internal decks and crew compartments, through the reactor core, and out the other side. The ship broke in half. Both halves exploded as their power systems went critical. The entire engagement lasted 1.3 seconds from the order to fire to the destruction of the target. On the bridge of the Valiant, Carl stared at his console in amazement. Direct hit. Target destroyed. Morrison's expression remained cold. Target the second cruiser. Fire when ready. And across the entire alien fleet, every sensor operator, every tactical officer, every commander watched in horror as a second Kethrin cruiser vanished in a ball of fire. The second Kethrin cruiser tried to turn away. Its commander realized too late that something was terribly wrong. The shields were useless. The armor meant nothing. Whatever weapons the human ship carried, they bypassed every defense the Dominion had spent centuries perfecting. The Valiant fired 3 rounds in rapid succession. The first struck the cruiser's engine section, the second hit the command tower, and the third penetrated the ammunition storage. The ship disintegrated in a cascade of explosions that lit up the darkness like a small sun. The third cruiser's captain panicked. He ordered full reverse thrust and raised shields to maximum power. His crew worked frantically at their stations, targeting systems trying to lock onto the human vessel. But the Valiant was faster, more agile, and its weapons reloaded in seconds. Carl tracked the fleeing cruiser on his displays. Target attempting to retreat, Commander. Shall I pursue? Morrison watched the alien ship turn and run. Part of him wanted to let it go. These were living beings, after all. Soldiers following orders. But he knew that mercy now might cost more lives later. This had to be decisive. This had to be a message so clear that no one would misunderstand. Negative on pursuit, he said. Missile lock. Full salvo, Carl punched the commands. 20 missiles launched from the Valiant's port side, their engines burning bright blue as they accelerated. The fleeing cruiser's point defense systems opened fire, desperately trying to shoot down the incoming weapons. They managed to destroy 6 missiles. The other 14 hit home. The explosions tore through the cruiser's hull. Secondary detonations rippled along its length as internal systems failed. The ship broke apart slowly, pieces spinning away into the void. There were no escape pods, no survivors. Total time elapsed since the first shot, 14 seconds. On the bridge of the Valiant, silence reigned. Sophie stared at her console, her face pale. Carl's hands trembled slightly as he checked his weapon systems. Even Morrison felt the weight of what just happened. 3 ships, thousands of lives, gone in less time than it took to tie a shoe. Status? Morrison asked quietly. All systems nominal, Carl reported. Railgun capacitors recharging. Missile racks reloading. No damage to report. The aliens never got a shot off. Sophie checked her communications panel. Commander, the alien fleet has gone completely silent. All combat chatter stopped. I think they're in shock, Morrison nodded. Open a channel to the Kethrin command ship. All frequencies. Channel open, sir. Morrison activated his microphone. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Admiral Krathex, this is Commander Morrison. The 3 vessels you sent have been destroyed. That was a demonstration of Earth's defensive capabilities. I regret the loss of life, but you forced this action. You now have a choice. You can withdraw your fleet from this system immediately, or you can continue this confrontation. If you choose to fight, I promise you that every ship under your command will share the same fate as those 3 cruisers. The decision is yours. You have 10 minutes to respond. He closed the channel and sat back in his chair. Sophie looked at him with wide eyes. Sir, you said Earth's defensive capabilities. We're the only ship here. They don't know that, Morrison replied. And even if they suspect, they can't be sure. Doubt is a powerful weapon, Lieutenant. Right now, every commander in that fleet is wondering if there are more ships like us hiding in the system. They're wondering if their sensors can even detect us. They're wondering if their entire tactical doctrine just became obsolete. On the Kethrin command ship, Admiral Krathek stood frozen in the center of his bridge. His 4 eyes stared at the tactical display showing 3 empty spaces where his cruisers used to be. Around him, his crew worked in stunned silence. No one spoke. No one wanted to be the first to acknowledge what they had all witnessed. Vexel finally broke the silence. His voice shook. "Admiral, our sensors recorded the engagement. The human weapons are kinetic projectiles moving at approximately 3% light speed. Our shields are designed to deflect energy weapons. They cannot stop solid objects at those velocities. The kinetic energy is simply too great." The science officer pulled up his data on the main screen. "Admiral, I have analyzed the attack. The human railgun rounds carry more kinetic energy than our largest plasma cannons. When they strike, the impact is equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon. Our armor cannot withstand it. Our shields cannot stop it. We have no defense against this technology." Krathek felt something he had not experienced in decades of military service. Fear. Pure cold fear. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me the other fleet commanders. Conference channel. Now." Within moments, holographic displays appeared around the bridge showing the commanders of the Eskrit, Vrex, and Taurian forces. The Skrit commander, a reptilian being with silver scales, spoke first. His voice hissed with barely controlled panic. "What were those weapons? Our databases have no record of such technology. How did one ship destroy 3 cruisers without taking damage?" The Vrex Queen's image flickered. She was massive, her insectoid body filling the display. "The hive is disturbed. Our bioships sense danger. We must reconsider this action." The Taurian commander, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, pulsed with agitation. "My analysis indicates the human vessel uses primitive kinetic weapons, but at velocities we did not think possible. Our shields are useless. This changes everything," Krathek wanted to argue. He wanted to rally his allies and crush this impudent human ship, but he had not survived 40 years of warfare by being stupid. He looked at the tactical display again. 1 human ship had destroyed 3 of his best cruisers in seconds. If there were more human vessels in the system, if this was truly a standard warship and not some experimental prototype, then his fleet was already dead. They just didn't know it yet. "We need information," he said slowly. "We need to know how many human ships are here. We need to know if this is their only vessel or if others are waiting. We need to know if they have reinforcements coming." "How do we get this information?" the Skrit commander demanded. "Our sensors cannot detect them until they reveal themselves. They could have 10 more ships hidden in this system." Vexal spoke up hesitantly. "Admiral, the human commander mentioned Earth's defensive capabilities, plural. He also gave us a time limit. Perhaps he wants us to withdraw without further conflict. Or perhaps it is a bluff," Krathek said. But even as he spoke the words, he knew they sounded weak. A species that could build weapons like that did not need to bluff. The Vrex Queen made a decision. "The hive will not risk its ships against unknown weapons. We are withdrawing to a safe distance. We will observe but not engage." Her hologram vanished. Within minutes, the 35 Vrex bioships began moving away from the main fleet. The Skrit commander cursed but followed suit. His 40 vessels also retreated. The Taurian representative flickered uncertainly, then announced his forces would also withdraw. Krathek watched his coalition fall apart. Half his fleet was already leaving. His own Kethrin forces remained, but their morale was shattered. Officers looked at him with frightened eyes, waiting for orders. The human had given him 10 minutes. 8 had already passed. Krathek thought about his options. He could order an attack. His remaining 100 ships might overwhelm the single human vessel through sheer numbers. But at what cost? How many would die? And if there were more human ships waiting, if this was truly a trap, then he would be leading his entire force to destruction. He thought about the 3 cruiser captains he had sent to their deaths. Good officers, loyal soldiers. They followed his orders without question, and now they were gone. Could he order hundreds more to the same fate? The answer was no. He could not. Not for a colony world, not for territorial pride, not when the odds were so uncertain. Krathek turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the human vessel." "Channel open, Admiral." Krathek spoke slowly, each word carefully chosen. "Commander Morrison, this is Admiral Krathek. The Kethrin Dominion acknowledges your position. We will withdraw our forces from the system. We ask that you allow our vessels to leave without further action." On the Valiant's bridge, Sophie looked at Morrison with relief evident on her face. Carl allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. They had faced down an entire armada and won without losing a single life on their side. Morrison activated his microphone one last time. Your withdrawal is accepted, Admiral. You have safe passage. But understand this. New Hope Colony is under Earth's protection. Any future aggression toward human settlements will be met with immediate and decisive force. Tell your superiors. Tell the galaxy. Humanity will defend what is ours. Understood, Krathex replied quietly. We will inform our government. Kethren fleet out. The alien fleet began to turn. Over 200 warships representing 4 different species, all retreating from a single human vessel. On sensor displays across the system, the movement was clear. The Great Armada was running away. The alien fleet's withdrawal was not orderly. Ships bumped into each other in their haste to create distance from the human vessel. Jump points opened across the system as various commanders decided they had seen enough. The Vrex bioships vanished first, their organic drives leaving strange ripples in space. The Essekrit followed, their sleek warships disappearing in flashes of green light. On the bridge of the Valiant, Carl monitored the retreat with professional interest. Commander, the Taurian vessels are holding position at 500,000 kilometers. They're not leaving the system, just backing off. The Kethren fleet is reforming but staying well clear of us. Their weapon systems are powered down. Morrison studied the tactical display. The once threatening armada had broken into scattered groups, each one maintaining careful distance from the Valiant. It reminded him of prey animals backing away from a predator, unwilling to turn their backs but desperate to escape. What are they waiting for? Sophie asked, watching her communications console. Half their fleet is gone. Why don't the rest jump out? They're scared, Morrison said quietly. They don't know how many of us there are. They're worried that if they turn and run, we might shoot them in the back. Right now, they're trying to figure out if they're safer staying or leaving. Carl looked up from his station. Sir, I'm detecting increased communication traffic between the remaining ships. Looks like they're arguing about what to do next. On the Kethren command ship, that argument was getting heated. Admiral Krathex sat in his command throne, listening to his officers debate their situation. Some wanted to leave immediately. Others suggested staying to gather more intelligence. A few even proposed attempting another attack. We cannot simply abandon this region, one senior captain argued. The Dominion has claimed the Vryn Expanse for 50 years. If we retreat now, we lose all credibility. Other species will challenge our borders. Vexal shook his head. Credibility matters nothing if we're all dead. You saw what happened to the cruisers. One shot, and they were gone. How do we fight that? The science officer pulled up data on his screens. I've been analyzing the human vessel's capabilities. The railgun system has a reload time of approximately 30 seconds. The missiles reload in 45 seconds. If we coordinated an attack from multiple angles, we might overwhelm their ability to target all of us. Might, Krathex repeated. You say we might succeed. How many ships would we lose in the attempt? The science officer hesitated. Difficult to calculate precisely, Admiral, but based on their demonstrated capabilities, I estimate we would lose between 30 and 50 vessels before closing to effective range, and that assumes this is their only ship in the system. Silence fell across the bridge. 30 to 50 ships, thousands of lives. And even then, success was not guaranteed. Krathex looked at his remaining forces on the tactical display. He had 97 vessels left after the earlier withdrawals. Losing half of them to kill one human ship was not a trade any sane commander would make. A message alert interrupted his thoughts. His communications officer looked up with surprise. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Kethren High Command. The Council demands an immediate situation report. Krathex felt his scales tighten with stress. Of course, news of the defeat would have reached the homeworld by now. The Council would be demanding answers. They would want to know how he lost 3 cruisers to a single enemy vessel. They would question his competence, his judgment, his courage. Put them through, he said wearily. A holographic image appeared before him. Council member Thaxkor, one of the most senior Kethren officials, stared at him with all 4 eyes. Admiral Krathex, explain yourself. How did you lose 3 heavy cruisers to a human trading vessel? It was not a trading vessel, Council member. Krathex replied, keeping his voice steady. It was a warship unlike anything in our databases. The humans have developed kinetic weapons that bypass our energy shields completely. Our defensive technology is ineffective against them. Thaxkor's expression did not change. One ship, Admiral. You faced one ship with over 200 vessels and you retreated. The coalition collapsed, Krathex explained. The Vrex, Eskrit, and Taurian forces withdrew after witnessing the destruction of our cruisers. They refused to engage. I could either retreat or face the human vessel alone with uncertain support. Another council member's image appeared, this one female with silver-tipped scales. Admiral, our intelligence on humanity indicated they were weak. Traitors, not warriors. How did we miss this? Krathex activated his tactical display, projecting it so the council could see. Because they let us miss it. The humans operate with minimal military presence in most regions. They avoid conflict when possible and focus on commerce. But that was misdirection. While we ignored them, they developed weapons technology specifically designed to counter the standard galactic arsenal. Thaxkor's studied the display showing the destroyed cruisers. Kinetic weapons. Primitive projectile systems. How did we not anticipate this? Because most species abandoned kinetic weapons centuries ago, the Admiral replied. We all moved to energy-based systems. Our shields, our armor, our entire defensive doctrine is built around stopping energy weapons. The humans took a different path. They perfected the old technology, made it faster and more powerful than anyone thought possible. The female council member leaned forward. Can we counter it? Krathex glanced at his science officer, who shook his head. The Admiral turned back to the council. Not quickly. We would need to redesign our shields to create physical barriers rather than energy fields. We would need thicker armor, probably layered composite materials. Our entire fleet would require refitting. It would take years. Years we don't have if the humans decide to expand aggressively, Thaxkor said. Admiral, what is your assessment of their intentions? Krathex considered carefully before answering. The human commander, Morrison, gave us multiple chances to withdraw. He warned us before firing. He only destroyed ships that actively engaged him. I believe humanity is primarily defensive. They will protect their colonies, but I do not think they seek conquest. You believe, Thaxkor said flatly. That is not intelligence, Admiral. That is hope. Perhaps, Krathex admitted. But consider this, council members. The human mentioned Earth's defensive capabilities, plural. If they have more ships like this one, if this is their standard military vessel, then we face a threat unlike any in Dominion history. We need to open diplomatic channels immediately. We need to understand their full capabilities before making any further moves. The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Thaxkor nodded slowly. Very well, Admiral. Return to base for debriefing. We will begin diplomatic overtures to Earth. But understand this. Your career with the Dominion fleet is over. You will be reassigned to administrative duties pending full investigation of this incident. Krathex had expected as much. Someone had to take responsibility for the defeat. Understood, council member. The holograms vanished. Krathex sat alone in his command chair, feeling every one of his 60 years. His career was finished. 40 years of service, hundreds of battles, all ending because he underestimated an unknown species. Bexal approached cautiously. Admiral, the fleet awaits your orders. Order all vessels to jump to the rally point, Krathex said quietly. We're leaving the system. The humans have won. One by one, the Kethran warships opened jump points and disappeared. Within an hour, only empty space remained where the Great Armada had gathered. The USS Valiant floated alone, victorious. On New Hope, Governor Linda Hayes watched the sensors in the colony's control center. When the last alien ship vanished, cheers erupted around her. People hugged each other, crying with relief. They had survived. Their homes were safe. Linda activated the long-range communications system. Governor Hayes to USS Valiant. Commander Morrison, on behalf of 30,000 colonists, thank you. You saved our lives. Morrison's voice came back, tired but warm. Just doing our job, Governor. Earth looks after its own. Valiant out. Sophie smiled at the commander. Sir, you're a hero. You know that, right? When word of this spreads, you'll be famous across human space. Morrison shook his head. I'm just a man who did what needed doing. The real heroes are the colonists who stood their ground when an armada threatened them. They refused to run. That takes real courage. Carl powered down the weapon systems. Commander, Earth Command is requesting a full report. They also want to know if we need support vessels. Tell them we're secure for now, Morrison replied. But they should send a diplomatic team. Something tells me we're going to have a lot of visitors soon. Everyone in this region will want to talk to humanity now. He was right. Across dozens of star systems, governments were already calling emergency sessions. The balance of power in this region of space had just shifted dramatically. Humanity was no longer an insignificant newcomer to be ignored or bullied. They were a force to be respected and possibly feared. The galaxy had changed, and the USS Valiant had changed it with nothing more than 14 seconds of violence and the courage to stand firm when outnumbered. 3 weeks after the incident at New Hope, Commander Jake Morrison sat in a conference room on Earth, surrounded by admirals, politicians, and intelligence officers. Everyone wanted to hear his story firsthand. Everyone wanted to understand exactly what happened when one ship faced down an armada. Admiral Patricia Cole, head of Earth's Deep Space Fleet, leaned forward in her chair. Commander, your actions have created a significant diplomatic situation. We're receiving contact requests from over 40 different species. Some want trade agreements. Others want military alliances. A few are demanding we surrender our kinetic weapons technology. Morrison nodded slowly. I expected that, Admiral. We showed them something they didn't think was possible. Now they're scrambling to figure out what it means for their own security. A representative from Earth's diplomatic corps, a thin man named Charles Webb, shuffled through his papers. Commander, you told the Kethrin Admiral that Earth has 47 ships like the Valiant. That was a fabrication. We actually have only 12 similar vessels. What if they discover the truth? They might, Morrison admitted. But by the time they confirm it, we'll have more ships in production. The bluff bought us time. That's all we needed. Admiral Cole smiled slightly. The commander is correct. We've already accelerated our shipbuilding program. Within 6 months, we will have 47 warships. Within 2 years, over 100. Morrison's actions gave us breathing room to build the fleet we need. Webb still looked concerned. But the diplomatic implications are complex. The Kethrin Dominion has formally requested peace talks. So have the Eskrit clans and the Vrex Collective. They all want to establish boundaries and agreements. Some are even proposing mutual defense pacts. That's good news, Morrison said. Better to negotiate than fight. Not everyone sees it that way, Webb replied. There's a faction in the Galactic Coalition that views humanity as a dangerous newcomer. They're proposing restrictions on our expansion. They want to limit where we can establish colonies. Admiral Cole's expression hardened. Let them propose whatever they want. We'll negotiate in good faith, but we won't accept being caged. Humanity has earned its place at the table. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. Morrison answered questions about the Valiant's capabilities, the alien fleet's composition, and his tactical decisions. By the end, his throat was dry and his patience thin. He just wanted to return to his ship and his crew. When the officials finally let him go, Morrison found Sophie and Carl waiting in the hallway. Both wore dress uniforms and uncomfortable expressions. Sophie spoke first. Sir, they want to give us medals. A ceremony next week. Full military honors, Morrison sighed. I hate ceremonies, Carl grinned. Too bad, Commander. You're a hero now. The whole crew is getting promoted. I'm making Lieutenant Commander. Sophie is getting her captain's bars, and you're probably going to be an admiral by the end of the year. I don't want to be an admiral, Morrison said. I want to be a ship captain. That's what I'm good at, Sophie smiled. Then you better tell Admiral Cole, because everyone upstairs thinks you're command material now. Far from Earth, on the Kethrin homeworld, former Admiral Krathex walked through the gardens of his family estate. He wore civilian clothes now. His military career was over, ended in disgrace. The Dominion Council had stripped him of his rank and retired him with minimal honors. But he was alive. The 3 cruiser captains he sent to their deaths were not. That thought haunted him every night. He had been so certain of his superiority, so confident that the humans would fold. He had been wrong, and good officers paid the price for his arrogance. Vexal, his former second officer, came to visit. The younger Kethrin had been reassigned to a training facility, teaching new officers about the human encounter. He found Krathex sitting by a pond watching the water. Admiral, Vexal said, then caught himself. Forgive me, Krathex. I came to tell you that the diplomatic talks with Earth are proceeding well. They're not demanding territory. They just want recognition and security for their colonies. Krathex nodded. That is wise of them. They understand they're still outnumbered. They're using their military success to gain political security. The Council wants me to teach new officers about fighting humans, Vexal continued. But I'm not sure what to tell them. Don't underestimate them. Don't trust your shields. Don't assume primitive means weak. Tell them all of that, Krathek said quietly. And tell them something else. Tell them that humanity fights differently because they think differently. We've been using energy weapons for so long that we forgot why we switched from kinetic systems. We thought we evolved beyond them. But the humans saw an opportunity. They took old technology and perfected it. That's what makes them dangerous. Vexal sat down beside his former commander. Do you think they'll expand aggressively now? Use their advantage to conquer? Krathek considered the question. No. I watched Commander Morrison carefully during our encounter. He gave us chances to retreat. He only fired when we forced his hand. Humans are defensive by nature. But if we threaten them again, if anyone threatens them, they will respond with devastating force. We taught them that they need to be feared to be safe. On New Hope, life slowly returned to normal. The colonists rebuilt their confidence and continued expanding their settlements. Governor Linda Hayes stood in the same observation window where she had watched the alien fleet arrive. Now she watched construction crews building new housing blocks. Her assistant, a young woman named Kate Simmons, joined her. Governor, Earth is sending a permanent defense station to orbit the planet. They're also assigning 2 warships to patrol the system. Linda smiled. Good. Our people deserve to feel safe. There's more news, Kate continued. Applications to join the colony have increased by 300%. Everyone wants to come to New Hope now. They say it's the safest human world in the galaxy. Strange how things work out, Linda said. We were almost destroyed, and now we're a symbol of human strength. Aboard the USS Valiant, now in orbit around Earth for maintenance and crew rotation, Morrison stood on the bridge alone. Most of his crew was on leave, enjoying their newfound fame. But he preferred the quiet of his ship. He looked at the command chair where he had made the decision to fire, where he had chosen to fight rather than watch innocent people suffer. It had been the right choice. He knew that. But it still weighed on him. 3 ships destroyed. How many people died in those 14 seconds? Hundreds? Thousands? They had families. They had dreams. And now they were gone because he pulled a trigger. But 30,000 colonists were alive because he pulled that trigger. That was the burden of command. The weight of deciding who lives and who dies. Morrison understood now why so many commanders retired young. The responsibility never got easier. Admiral Cole appeared in the bridge doorway. Commander Morrison, I thought I'd find you here. Morrison turned. Admiral, what can I do for you? She walked to the view screen and looked out at Earth. I wanted to tell you personally. The diplomatic talks are going well. The Kethran Dominion has proposed a non-aggression pact. The Vrex Collective wants to establish trade relations. Even the Eskrid are interested in cultural exchanges. That's good news, Morrison said. It is, Cole agreed. But it's also a challenge. Humanity is now a major player in galactic politics. We have responsibilities. We have to be smart about how we use our new influence. Morrison looked at her carefully. What are you asking, Admiral? Cole turned to face him directly. I'm asking you to help shape that future. You've proven yourself under pressure. You understand both military tactics and diplomatic consequences. I want you to command the new deep space defense fleet we're building. 12 ships like the Valiant, all under your command. Morrison felt the weight of the offer. 12 ships. Hundreds of crew members. Enormous responsibility. What about the Valiant? She'll be your flagship, Cole said with a smile. You'll still be her captain. You'll just have a bigger mission. Morrison thought about it. More ships meant more colonies protected, more families kept safe, more chances to prevent wars instead of fighting them. That was worth the burden. I accept, he said finally. Cole extended her hand. Welcome to the future, Fleet Commander Morrison. They shook hands. 2 officers who understood that strength without wisdom was tyranny, but wisdom without strength was vulnerability. Humanity needed both. Across the galaxy, the story of the USS Valiant spread. It became legend. How one ship faced an armada and won. How humanity announced its arrival on the galactic stage not with words, but with action. How a single warship changed everything. Species that once ignored humans now watched them carefully. Potential enemies became cautious. Potential allies became interested. And humanity learned an important lesson. Sometimes peace comes not from being harmless, but from being too dangerous to challenge. The USS Valiant returned to active duty 6 weeks after the incident at New Hope. Commander Morrison, soon to be promoted to fleet commander, stood on the bridge as his ship left Earth orbit. Sophie and Carl worked at their stations, now wearing their new ranks. The crew was proud, confident, and ready for whatever came next. As the stars stretched past the view screen, Morrison thought about the future. More ships were coming,